The story begins with a sense of light-hearted anticipation as the couples Daniel and Emily, Mark and Sarah set out on the long-awaited trip together. These couples have known each other for years. They met through work connections and mutual friends, and over time their friendship evolved into something steady and dependable. Double dates, dinner parties, and backyard barbecues had become familiar traditions, yet, as with all routines, there was a feeling that something was missing. When Emily suggested a weekend away, everyone immediately agreed. A cabin tucked away in the mountains promised a break from responsibility, a chance to breathe freely, and maybe even an adventure. The road trip itself becomes the first taste of freedom. The car is filled with music, laughter, and the sort of teasing that only old friends can get away with. Sarah leans her head out the window, enjoying the cool wind, while Emily taps along to a song on the radio. The men trade jokes, recalling moments from past trips, and soon the car is alive with shared memories and playful banter. Beneath the surface, however, there is also a quiet excitement, a recognition that this trip might be different from their usual gatherings. There is no dinner reservation waiting, no schedule to keep, no neighbors nearby, just for people, a cabin, and the promise of open space. As the road climbs higher into the mountains, conversation slows, replaced by quiet appreciation of the shifting scenery. Tall pines line the winding path, their shadows stretching long in the late afternoon sun. When the cabin finally comes into view, tucked neatly between the trees, with smoke curling faintly from its chimney, everyone falls silent for a moment. It feels like a world apart, hidden away from routine life and untouched by obligations. The air is cooler here, fresher, and carries the faint scent of pine needles and damp earth. Stepping out of the car, Emily stretches her arms wide, savoring the silence broken only by the call of a distant bird. Sarah follows, running her fingers along the rough wooden rail of the porch, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "This feels perfect," she says softly, and everyone agrees. The men busied themselves unloading bags and groceries from the car, while the women explore the cabin's interior. Inside, the atmosphere is cozy, wooden walls polished with age, a stone fireplace ready for kindling, and wide windows framing the view of the forest. There's an unspoken relief among them as they settle in. Daniel, usually burdened by his demanding job, seems lighter as he stacks firewood. Mark, who tends to be practical and cautious, surprises everyone by suggesting they leave their phones off for the weekend. Emily and Sarah exchange a glance that lingers just a little longer than usual, sharing a silent agreement that this trip could be more than just rested, could be renewal. As the sun begins to dip, painting the sky in soft orange and lavender, the couples gather on the porch with mugs of coffee and blankets. The moment feels suspended in time, as though they've stepped into a private world. The air is thick with possibility, though no one speaks of it yet. All they know is that they've arrived, not just at a cabin, but at the threshold of something that will change everything before the trip is over. As evening settles in, the cabin begins to hum with warmth and familiarity. The fire crackles steadily, its glow casting shadows across the wooden walls, while soft music plays in the background. On the surface, everything feels simple, to couples enjoying a peaceful retreat. Yet, beneath the laughter and chatter, subtle shifts begin to emerge. Unspoken tensions weave through the air, not in the form of conflict, but in delicate, almost imperceptible threads of attraction and curiosity. Emily, always the keen observer, is the first to notice. She catches Sarah watching Daniel as he tells a funny story from work, his animated gestures and easy charm holding her attention longer than polite interest would allow. Sarah's smile lingers even after the laughter fades, and Emily, rather than feeling jealous, feels a strange rush of awareness. It's not threatening, not hostile, just different, almost like a door creaking open to a thought that had never been spoken aloud. Across the room, Mark sits back in his chair, glass of wine in hand, watching the group. His eyes wander unconsciously toward Emily when she laughs, the sound bright and free in a way that stirs something inside him. She doesn't notice at first, but when she does, it sends a flush across her cheeks. She quickly looks away, yet her heart beats faster. She tells herself it's nothing, just a moment, but moments like this don't simply vanish. The wives, in particular, seem attuned to these subtle exchanges. Emily and Sarah share small, almost secretive glances, as if silently acknowledging what they both see but cannot yet say. Each smile between them carries weight, a quiet suggestion that perhaps they're both thinking along the same lines. The atmosphere isn't heavy, but it is charged like the air before a summer storm. The men remain largely unaware of the depth of these undercurrents. Daniel, always jovial, keeps the conversation lively, unaware of how his charm affects Sarah. Mark, though more reserved, doesn't fully realize how his lingering attention toward Emily has shifted the dynamic. They are relaxed, sipping their drinks, trading jokes, and marveling at how the stresses of daily life seem far away. Yet, if they were paying closer attention, they might notice the way their wives exchange looks more often than usual, or the faint tension that hangs between certain laughs. It is in small, seemingly ordinary moments that the tension becomes more noticeable. When Emily leans across the table to pour Sarah another glass of wine, Sarah's hand lingers against hers longer than necessary. Neither woman pulls away quickly, and though it's nothing overt, the touch carries an intimacy that doesn't go unnoticed, at least by them. Later, when Mark helps Emily bring in wood for the fire, their hands brush as they reach for the same log. They laugh it off, but both feel the brief spark of contact. The night continues, casual and carefree on the surface, but each passing hour deepens the sense of something stirring just below. The wives, in particular, seem almost amused by the shift, their eyes alive with mischief and curiosity. They don't speak of it yet, but their shared awareness binds them together in a silent pact. It is as though they are both waiting for the right moment, the right suggestion, to bring the unspoken into the open. By the time the fire has burned low and the couples are preparing for dinner, the cabin feels different from when they first arrived. The air is no longer just filled with warmth and laughter, it carries a quiet electricity, a tension that promises change. No one says it outright, but everyone feels it in their own way. Something is unfolding, slow but certain, and, though none of them fully understand it yet, the wives already know this trip will not be like the others. The kitchen of the cabin soon becomes the stage where everything subtly begins to change. The couples decide to prepare dinner together, a tradition they often shared on past trips. But unlike before, tonight carries a different rhythm. The small space forces them close, shoulders brushing, hands reaching across each other, laughter spilling as they bump into one another. The sense of sizzling garlic, roasted vegetables, and grilled meat fill the room, mixing with the warmth of the fireplace that glows just a room away. Emily stirs a pot on the stove while Sarah chops vegetables at the counter. The men hover nearby, sneaking bites of bread and offering clumsy help, which only leads to more laughter. Daniel teases Sarah about her careful, slow cutting, and she playfully swats at him with a carrot slice. Mark, meanwhile, leans against the counter beside Emily, handing her spices when she asks. Their closeness doesn't go unnoticed, least of all by Sarah, who catches the way Emily's cheeks pinkened when Mark brushes against her arm. The meal itself becomes a performance of togetherness. Plates clink, glasses fill, and the wine flows more freely than usual. The more they drink, the looser their tongues grow. At first, the conversation dances around familiar topics: work stress, upcoming plans, old stories that always draw laughter. But soon it shifts into deeper territory. Daniel, always the joker, brings up the subject of routines in marriage. "Sometimes, I think we just get too predictable," he says, laughing. "Same dinners, same vacations, same everything." Sarah smirks, her eyes glinting. Maybe predictable isn't the problem. Maybe it's that people are too afraid to try something new. Emily, emboldened by the wine, leans forward with interest. She's right. Most couples play it safe. They don't realize how much excitement they're missing by staying inside their comfort zone. Her words hang in the air, not confrontational, but pointed enough to spark thought. Mark raises a brow, intrigued. "And what exactly do you mean by that?" Emily only smiles, her lips curving with mystery. "Oh, sometimes all it takes is one small suggestion, one idea, and suddenly the whole night is different." The men chuckle, assuming it's just playful banter, but the wives exchange a glance, long, deliberate, and filled with unspoken meaning. It's clear they are testing the waters, planting seeds without revealing too much too soon. Dinner stretches on, laughter and curiosity mingling in equal measure. Every so often, a bold remark slips into the conversation. Sarah teasing about secret fantasies, Emily confessing how much she loves surprises, Daniel joking that he'd be too nervous to try anything wild. Each comment seems harmless on the surface, but together they create an undercurrent of daring possibility. By the time dessert is finished and the last of the wine poured, the atmosphere has shifted entirely. It no longer feels like just a friendly dinner among old companions. It feels like a prelude. The firelight flickers against their faces, highlighting the mix of nerves and anticipation in their expressions. Emily leans back in her chair, her voice calm yet firm. "The thing about life," she says softly, "is that sometimes the best memories come from the moments you least expect, when you stop overthinking and just let go." Sarah nods, her eyes locked on the men. "Exactly. So maybe tonight, we let go." The words strike the room with quiet force. What began as playful banter has become something undeniable. The men exchange glances, uncertain but intrigued, while the wives sit poised, their suggestion dangling in the air like a spark waiting for flame. After dinner, the couples move into the living room, carrying their glasses of wine and letting the warmth of the fire pull them into a more intimate atmosphere. The plates remain on the table, the remnants of their shared meal forgotten as the energy in the cabin shifts. The music plays softly in the background, but the real rhythm in the room comes from the steady exchange of glances, the subtle touches, and the quiet anticipation that has been building all night. That Emily and Sarah settle together on the couch, sitting closer than usual, their shoulders brushing as if intentionally blurring the invisible lines of space between them. Daniel and Mark take the armchairs opposite, relaxed but watchful. The wine has softened their edges, making them more receptive, though neither is prepared for what is about to unfold. It begins innocently enough. Sarah stretches, her smile playful, and says, "That dinner conversation has me thinking." She pauses long enough to command everyone's attention. "What if, just for tonight, we stopped being predictable?" The men chuckle nervously, unsure if she's teasing. Daniel raises his glass. "Stopped being predictable? What, like staying up past midnight?" His tone is light, but his eyes betray curiosity. Emily leans forward, her voice carrying a more deliberate weight. "No, more than that. What if we tried something different? Something we'd never normally consider, but might remember forever." Her words strike like a quiet spark in dry grass. The men exchange a glance, confusion mixing with intrigue. Mark shifts in his seat, his brow furrowed. "Different how?" he asks, his voice steady but edged with caution. The wives don't answer right away. Instead, they exchange a slow smile, a silent understanding passing between them. Sarah takes a sip of wine before responding. "We're not saying forever. We're not even saying often. Just one night. One night, to let go of all the rules we usually cling to." The statement hangs in the air, heavier now. Daniel laughs, but it's a hollow attempt to cover his nerves. "You two sound like you've been planning something." Emily shakes her head, though her mischievous smile says otherwise. "Not planning, just thinking. Wondering what it would be like to stop drawing such strict lines around ourselves. What if we gave ourselves permission to step outside the usual, just once?" For a moment, silence fills the room, broken only by the crackle of the fire. The men glance at each other again, their unease warring with curiosity. Both know this is not simply playful banter anymore. Their wives are serious. Mark sets down his glass, clearing his throat. "You realize this could change things. Once you cross certain lines, you can't exactly go back." Sarah tilts her head, her gaze steady. "Or maybe it could change things for the better. Maybe it could make us closer, not further apart." Emily nods in agreement, her eyes flickering between Daniel and Mark. "Sometimes you don't know what your relationship is capable of until you test its limits." The men fall quiet, weighing the suggestion. There's fear, yes, but also a pulse of excitement neither can deny. The idea is outrageous, dangerous even, but it is tempting. And that temptation is what makes it powerful. The wives lean back, satisfied, knowing they've planted the seed. The night has shifted irrevocably. What began as an ordinary trip has become something else entirely. Their suggestion now hovers in the room like a dare, waiting to be accepted. The room holds its breath after the wives' daring suggestion. The men sit in silence, processing the weight of what was just placed before them. The fire pops, sending sparks up the chimney, as if echoing the tension in the air. The wine has loosened their inhibitions, but this is no longer a playful game. This is a real choice, one that could shift everything. Daniel is the first to speak, his usual humor stripped away. "So, if we actually did this, it wouldn't be something we could just laugh off later. It would change things. His voice is quiet, almost testing. Sarah's reply is calm, almost soothing. Of course it would change things. That's the point. But maybe not in the way you're afraid of. Her eyes are steady, her confidence making the men shift uncomfortably, yet curiously. Emily leans forward, resting her elbows on her knees. Think about it, she says softly. How many nights do we go through that blend into one another? But one night where we dared to be different, that's the kind of memory that lasts forever. Her words are like a key, unlocking the tension that had held them all still. Daniel glances at Mark, who studies the rim of his glass, before finally meeting Emily's eyes. There's hesitation, but also the undeniable flicker of excitement. Slowly, both men nod, their silence signaling reluctant agreement. It begins hesitantly, with nervous laughter filling the spaces between stolen glances. No one quite knows how to move forward, but the wives take the lead. Sarah rises first, crossing the room with deliberate grace, her eyes never leaving Daniel's. Emily follows suit, her hand brushing Mark's shoulder as she passes, a touch both casual and charged. The atmosphere thickens, as though the walls themselves are leaning in to witness what unfolds. What starts as cautious steps soon grows bolder. Hands that once lingered by accident now reach out deliberately. Smiles once innocent turn into knowing looks. The air hums with a mixture of fear and thrill, each touch pushing them past boundaries they had never dared to test. The nervousness doesn't vanish, but it transforms, becoming part of the intensity, part of what makes the night unforgettable. Emotions run deeper than expected. There is laughter, yes, but also moments of surprising tenderness. The bonds of friendship blur, shifting into something else, something uncharted. Each couple finds themselves in a space where curiosity and trust intersect, creating an intimacy that feels both exhilarating and dangerous. Time loses its shape. The hours slip by in a haze of daring choices and quiet discoveries, the night stretching longer than any of them anticipated. They are no longer just four friends in a cabin. They are explorers of a new territory, bound together by the same mix of courage and vulnerability. By the time the fire has burned low and the glasses sit empty on the table, the cabin is no longer just a getaway. It has become the backdrop of a transformation. Every person in the room knows that nothing will ever be the same. They have crossed the threshold that cannot be undone, and yet, instead of regret, the air is filled with a strange peace. The fear of change has given way to the thrill of having embraced it. What began as a suggestion has become a secret, a shared truth that belongs to them alone. That night, under the hush of the mountains and the fading glow of the fire, everything changed. Morning arrives gently, with a pale light seeping through the tall cabin windows. The forest outside is hushed, wrapped in mist, and the faint call of birdsong filters through the quiet. Inside, the fire has long since burned down to ashes, and the living room still carries the faint scent of smoke, wine, and the echoes of the night before. The couples stir slowly, each caught between rest and wakefulness. For a few moments, no one speaks. The weight of what happened lingers in the air, not heavy with regret, but thick with meaning. Daniel rubs his eyes, glancing at Emily across the room, and then at Sarah, who offers him a small, knowing smile. Mark shifts on the couch where he had dozed off, his thoughts already swirling with questions he cannot quite shape into words. That at first, there is an awkward stillness. What do you say after a night that rewrote the rules of friendship and marriage? Do you laugh it off, pretend nothing happened, or do you acknowledge the truth that something irreversible has taken place? The silence seems to press on all of them until Sarah finally breaks it with a soft chuckle. Well, she says, stretching her arms, that was different. The others laugh quietly, relieved by her boldness. The tension softens, and a warmth seeps into the room again. It's not the same warmth as before. It's heavier, richer, touched by the intimacy of shared secrets. Emily takes a deep breath, her voice gentle. I don't regret it. She glances around, her eyes steady. Do any of you? Mark hesitates, his jaw tightening for a moment, before shaking his head. No, I don't. Daniel nods slowly, in agreement, though his gaze lingers on Sarah, as if trying to reconcile the friend he knew with the woman who had surprised him so completely. The wives exchange a quiet, triumphant glance, not of victory, but of understanding. It was their suggestion, their risk, and it had shifted everything exactly as they intended. Yet the feeling is not one of conquest, it is one of connection. They had dared to break the invisible walls around them, and rather than shatter, The bonds between them had deepened. Breakfast becomes the first act of moving forward. Together, they prepare eggs, toast, and coffee, the kitchen once again filled with movement and laughter. But underneath the ordinary tasks lies a new undercurrent. Every glance carries an extra weight. Every brush of fingers recalls the night before. They do not speak openly of details, but they do not deny them either. Instead, there is an unspoken agreement that what happened will remain theirs, alone sealed in the cabin, untouchable by the outside world. As they pack their bags, later that morning, the mood is lighter than expected. The fear of regret has given way to a strange peace, almost a glow. Stepping out onto the porch, they take one last look at the cabin nestled in the trees, a place that now holds a memory none of them could ever fully explain. On the drive back, conversation flows easily again, though with pauses where thoughts drift to the night behind them. They laugh, they sing along to the radio, but in their silence lies the knowledge of something extraordinary. They have crossed a boundary together, and it has bound them in ways no one else will ever understand. When they finally reach the city, life waits for them with its usual routines: work, responsibilities, familiar roles. Yet each of them carries the weight of the cabin night like a secret flame. It is both a reminder and a promise that sometimes one daring suggestion can change everything, not with destruction, but with transformation. They part ways with hugs and lingering looks, their ordinary lives resuming on the surface, but beneath it all, they know the truth. The trip had given them more than just memories. It had given them a bond too rare, too fragile, and too precious to ever put into words. The night had changed them, and in the quiet morning after, they realized it was a change they would never undo.